All right, so you've analyzed ads from AG1, from Gruns, from IM8, you've looked at their offer, you've done all that, you've tried product seeding like they do, you've tried a bunch of stuff, but you still can't actually scale your brand. Why is that? That's because you're looking at outlier examples and you're not looking for repeatable general patterns of success. That's something I was doing for the longest time. I was reading this book, actually, Psychology of Money, and that is where I learnt this from. It is honestly an insane principle for life, and if you actually start applying this, not only is it going to actually help you scale your brand, but this is also going to actually just help you become more successful in life, whatever you do, and it's going to help you a lot. So I'm going to share that lesson with you today, and if you're new to the channel, my name's Ganor. I make these videos to make scaling to 8 figures easy for health and wellness e-commerce brands. Let's get into the video. So a lot of e-com operators actually study the wrong examples. They look at examples like AG1, IM8, Gruns, massive supplement brands, hyper-funded DTC brands, brands that scaled insanely fast. Like IM8, Gruns, like these are brands that just killed it, absolutely fucking killed it. And then they try to actually reverse engineer everything they do. They try to analyze their ads, their offers, they try to even copy them. God forbid you rip some of their ads, right? And the problem is that a lot of these brands are just extreme examples. They are not always general patterns of success. They may have funding, they may be able to take a loss up front, they may have celebrity or influencer leverage, they may have timing on their side, they might have just gone lucky. They may have distribution advantages that you can't see. They may have just got lucky in ways that you cannot easily copy. So the lesson is not never study big brands. The lesson is be careful where you actually take the lesson, right? Where you actually take the lesson from them, because the money lesson over here that I actually learned from Psychology of Money by Morgan Housel, I think that's how you pronounce his name. In the chapter Luck and Risk, he actually talks about how often people actually study extreme success stories and try to actually copy them. But the issue with extreme examples is that they can be heavily influenced by luck, timing, risk, privilege, market conditions, or variables you cannot even see. So instead of actually only studying 1 in a million winners, you should actually look for general success and failure patterns, okay? Because general patterns are actually way more repeatable, and that is the point. You can't build your strategy around extreme examples of success, because that obviously might have been like influenced by luck, timing, risk, privilege, market conditions, and all that stuff, and you may not have that stuff as well. You build your strategy around patterns that show up again and again, and if you actually just wake up, try every single day, work hard, you're obviously going to have your own luck, you're going to have your own timing, you're going to have your own privilege and all that stuff, but you cannot build a strategy around it. Extreme examples always create bad lessons, because when people actually copy and study massive brands, they always just copy the visible parts, right? They copy their ads, their landers, their hooks, offers, branding, content style, website structure, bundles, claims. They copy everything that is just out in the front, right? But they don't actually see the hidden context. They don't see how much funding they have. They don't see that they're scaling on a fucking 0.6 ROAS. They don't see their back-end economics. They don't see their influencer network. They don't see their partnerships, their media buying history, their customer base, their wholesale and retail channels. They don't see their team size or their risk profile or their timing or their luck, right? All they see is all of this stuff over here. But this is what also matters, and this is why you can't take extreme examples of success, because you might copy what they're actually doing without having the machine that actually makes this strategy work, and that is very dangerous, and that can literally kill a brand, and I've seen that kill a brand before. Because outlier brands are not completely useless, you can still study them. But the thing is, you have to be careful how you actually study them. You can still study them, but you need to study them properly. Don't just ask, what is AG1 doing? Oh my God, they're launching a new influencer partnership. Let me get onto it as well. Or they're doing TikTok product seeding. Oh my God, let me get onto it as well. You can't ask, what is IM8 doing? You have to ask, is there a general pattern that AG1 is actually representing? Is this something that actually works across many brands, or is it specific to their situation? Don't just ask, what is Gruns doing that I can copy, right? Is this a repeatable principle, or is this an outlier case? There is a difference. People love to do this when they see huge extreme levels of success, like Jeff Bezos, like Elon Musk, like Warren Buffett, all these guys. By the way, Warren Buffett literally says that he got lucky. Like, he literally says, he admits it, he got lucky. So you can't just try to copy his investment strategy, because it probably won't work the same for you, because you probably won't be able to invest in the exact same companies, right? Same with Elon Musk. A lot of people try to copy his extreme pattern of success, which is essentially sleeping only like 5 to 6 hours a night. Now, one, no one even knows if he actually does that. No one checks his sleep or his like Aura ring every day. And number two, that is just an extreme extreme sort of point of view. That is sort of an extreme scenario, right? He can sleep 5 to 6 hours and still get by, but if you're trying to do it, on the fourth day, you're going to be fucked and you're going to sleep for like 12 hours and you're going to fuck up your hormones and everything, right? People love looking at extreme examples because that is what gives us the dopamine hits, but the general, boring, repeatable patterns of success, the principles, is what actually helps us succeed. The problem with just copying these outliers is you might copy the wrong thing, right? For example, you might see a giant brand running a very simple ad and you might think, okay, simple ads are the move, but maybe that ad only works because the brand already has massive awareness. Or you might see a brand running a very expensive, like founder looking ad, like a cinematic founder ad, and you might think, okay, we need founder content, but maybe that only worked because the founder already had authority. Or maybe you might see a brand doing like a very broad claim, right? And you might think, okay, broad claims are working again, but maybe that brand can get away with it because they have trust, they have capital, then they're scaling at a 0.6 ROAS like Gruns, right? And the visible tactic is not always the reason it actually worked. You have to look for the general patterns of success. Instead of obsessing over these outliers, look for patterns that actually show up multiple times across successful brands. This is the stuff that I've started to really just preach recently. And if you go onto my X or my Instagram, you'll see that a lot of my videos are literally just about preaching the principles of success, right? They understand their customer deeply. That is a repeatable pattern that every successful company has. They do their market research. They speak in customer language. They create strong offers. They build trust. They show proof. They educate the market. They solve real problems. They test consistently. They learn from losing ads. They improve their product over time. They understand market sophistication. They find underserved sub-avatars. They make the customer feel understood. They build creative systems. They use feedback loops. They reduce the risk for the buyer, and they make the buying decision easier. These are not the sexy things, right? This is not like, hey, ship your product to like these 50 different creators. They'll create videos and they'll make your brand go viral. Like, this is not the sexy stuff that people love doing, right? But this is repeatable. This is a general pattern of success, and this is how you actually win, okay? The question when you actually study a brand isn't that, okay, what kind of ads are they running? Is their hook like the reason they're successful? Is this the reason they're successful? Their offer, their landing page? Is this a principle or is this an exception? Okay, I'll give you an example right over here in front of you. Let's go to iMate. And let's actually go ahead and they've got Giannis now. What the hell? I just noticed that. Anyway, basically, when you go to their offer, you can be like, okay, well, their offer's working. Okay, nice. Oh, I really like this. We actually have to ask yourself, instead of just blindly copying their offer, is, okay, why is their offer actually working? What is the principle behind this? Well, exclusive access to 90-day IMA transformation program. Okay, interesting. You know, free welcome kit, $150 in value, maximum savings, cancel or pause anytime, 90-day money back guarantee. You can literally copy this exact thing and you still won't scale. Because maybe the audience is already educated on 90-day IMA transformation program. Maybe your audience is not. You don't know how many ads they're running on this, right? Their free welcome kit. You don't know the things that are specific to their brand, but you actually have to look past it and say, okay, why? Why would they actually want this? Why would they actually want this? And once you actually start to go behind the why and find the principles of why certain things work, then you can apply them to your brand. And I'm not going to try to actually analyze this because it'll take a long time. This video is not for that. I'll probably have to sit in like silence for like 10-20 minutes to really go deep into it. But I hope you get the point. You actually have to analyze beyond what you actually see. So where were we? The problem with copying outliers, look for general patterns of success. There we go. Okay, principle versus exception. They use customer language in their ads. That is the principle that is always going to work. Exception is they can spend millions while being unprofitable because they have funding. That is an exception. You have to actually take that into account as well, right? The principle is they can make their offer feel more valuable with bonuses, but the exception over here is that they can afford huge influencer deals because they have capital. Literally what we just saw over here, right? Imagine if you tried to copy their entire, you just said the MVP's valuable routine. This would make no sense for you because you don't have the MVP as your influencer right over here, right? Principle is they build trust through proof, UGC, real customers, reviews. The exception is they launch a massive campaign because a celebrity is involved, okay? That is how you actually separate from what is useful from what is misleading. Look for general patterns of success because they always beat extreme examples. Extreme examples are very exciting, they're very sexy, they're fun to engage in, you know? It's fun to make these new AI animation ads and everything, but the general patterns are what is actually more useful. If you see a brand scale like crazy from one specific tactic that is interesting or something, but if you see, sorry, this is sorry, this is weird. I don't know how ChatGPT's formatted this. I usually just get ChatGPT to write out my ideas and everything. But if you see 50 successful brands all doing the same thing in different ways, that is more important. There we go. Just general patterns of success, right? You are looking for a pattern. And if you get, I think if someone actually tweeted this the other day as well, someone super successful. He was like, if you look for general patterns of success and you actually get really good at pattern recognition, you will become rich. So example of general patterns is successful brands understanding their customers better than average brands, successful brands making stronger offers than average brands, testing more creatives than average brands, building better trust than average brands, using customer feedback better than average brands, and having a clear positioning than average brands, and creating better reasons to actually buy now. General patterns of success. You're not just, randomly just putting the MVP over here and you're copying this, because you can't make that work. You don't have Giannis, right? You can't get the point. So these are boring, like compared to just saying copy this 100 million brands landing page, but they're much more useful. Okay, so don't confuse visibility with repeatability. The brands you see everywhere are not always the best to copy because they are just most visible. Visibility does not automatically mean the strategy is repeatable for you. Some brands are literally just making money, and you probably can call out a few of these brands because they're just so familiar, like literally Amazon. A lot of their money is simply just made because people are so familiar with them. They just feel good buying from them. Plus, they give really fast shipping times. They give really good customer experience. A brand can be visible because they raise money, spending aggressively. They're running engagement campaigns, impression campaigns. They're taking a loss. They have celebrity leverage, press, investor backing, existing distribution, hype cycle, or the timing is just on their side. This does not mean that their exact playbook will actually work for your brand, which is probably a smaller brand. So you have to be very careful. You can study visible brands, but you can't really worship them, right? Look for general patterns of success. That is the entire theme of this video. So a better way to actually analyze brands is, what are they doing? Why might it be working? What hidden advantages do they actually have? Start to actually think of it this way. Okay, Gruns is running very simple ads. Their ads are not that impressive. Maybe I need to run ads that are not so impressive. Wrong. You need to actually look at, okay, they're scaling at a fucking 0.8 ROAS or 0.6 ROAS. That's something their founder literally admits to. So you have to see brand awareness, distribution, press, timing, team, partnerships. Like if you see, and a huge brand in Australia is a retail store called Coles, right? Coles could literally run an ad and literally be unprofitable. They spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on the campaign and literally make $0 from it. And it could be the shittest campaign and they wouldn't really care. And if you copied that, you would make $0 and you would care, right? Because you're obviously not like a multi-million dollar brand. This is this pattern actually repeated across other successful brands? Can I apply the principle without copying the exact execution? This is the most important part. You do not need to copy their ad. You need to copy the principle behind why it actually works. Look for principles, clinician's choice. Look for the principles that they're actually using. They're using a lot of celebrities. Like I would say this is even a principle, right? If you use celebrities, people would be more inclined to actually buy from you because people see Giannis, they see this chick over here, they see this guy named Ollie, they see David Beckham, and it builds a little bit more trust because they're familiar with it, right? They're using the familiarity bias over here. Basketball players are super familiar with this guy called Giannis, right? Obviously. And they would be more inclined to buy it because they're just familiar with him, right? So the example section is, well, AG brand as a long-term trust and offer structure. So AG1 has been running for a very long time. I actually discovered this when I first actually found out about them, and I sort of called this out a little bit, and I was like, okay, probably not the best thing to copy them exactly, because when you look at how long they've been around, let's just do AG1, how long been around. When you actually look at this, they've been around since like 2010, yes, 16 years. They've been around for 16 years. Over those 16 years, they've probably built up a lot of trust. They've built up a lot of influencer partnerships. They've built up maybe even a lot of cash to actually invest into something, or maybe even take a loss up front, right? So you have to take that into consideration. IM8 is a fast scaling outlier style brand. These guys just had, I think, a lot of funding. That was the thing, but they're not actually scaling profitably. These brands, like, they're just scaling based off the fact that they're literally going to make money later. Okay, again, same with Gruns, right? Gruns, this visible success, they just launched an amazing product, and maybe you right now don't have an amazing product, right? Maybe, okay, that's probably not the best way to say it. You probably have a really good product, but it's definitely not the only one you can get in the market. And if you, by the way, do have a product that is the only one you can get in the market and is genuinely better than everyone, you might want to click the first link in the description. But just saying, funded brands being able to actually take a loss. If you're a funded brand, you can usually take a loss. I think this was the case with, don't quote me on this, but I think it was Rise Coffee. Rise Coffee was a funded brand, or was it Rise Superfoods? Something like that, right? They were a funded brand, so they could actually take a loss up front. Smaller brands copying big brand tactics without big brand advantages. If you just take a random person with a script that David Beckham said and I made sad, I think it's pretty obvious that it just wouldn't have the same effect because they're not David Beckham, right? The difference between copying a landing page and copying the principle behind it. So I'll give you a very simple example over here, right? The MVP's most valuable routine. When you actually start to go around this and you actually start to say, okay, the MVP's most valuable routine, they're calling him the MVP, most valuable routine. Giannis trains, actually, I don't even know if this works, by the way, because this has just recently been uploaded. So you can't really quote it on this, but you can obviously see like the reviews and stuff. That is something that is more of like a principle, right? Actually building trust through familiarity and actually crediting Giannis's success to iMate. That is a principle. Crediting someone who is already successful, their success to your brand. That is something that is a principle. That will work anyway. But if you just randomly put a guy there and you're like, the MVP's valuable routine, the MVP over here is not the thing that's working. Giannis is the thing that's actually working, okay? The mistake most beginners make is that they just look at one successful brand and they're like, this is the playbook, right? This is what happens when I see a lot of giveaways on Instagram and X, and I'm a little bit guilty of giving these away as well, but you have to meet the customer where they're at. You have to meet people where they're at. But all these playbooks, like Gruns' $5 million playbook, iMate's $5 million playbook, this brand's $50 million playbook, like all that stuff. One brand is not a playbook. One brand is simply a case study, and a case study can be misleading if you don't understand the context. You have to actually study brands and say, okay, what keeps showing up? What is a general pattern of success? And I've given you quite a few general patterns of success right over here, which you can literally just screenshot. And if you start doing this, you will scale. Just take my word for it, okay? If you start doing it correctly, okay? A simple framework is very, very simple. Okay, cool. I've already, I think, been through that. What to focus on instead. Is this an outlier or a pattern? Be careful when you do that. Is this visible or hidden? Okay, am I copying a visible tactic or missing the hidden advantage? Is this repeatable for my brand? What is the principle behind it? You have to really start thinking for principles. How do I apply the principle my way? What to focus on instead? Better market research, better customer understanding, better offers, prove, trust, creative testing. These are things that are general patterns of success. This is what works, okay? So start copying this stuff instead. Start focusing on this stuff instead, because this will compound. Do it every single day. This shit will compound, okay? These are things you can control. These are the things that work across every single market. If a customer feels understood, they'll buy from you. It's simple. Just understand them. How hard is it? You know, final takeaway over here is do not build your strategy around a 1 in a million success story. Study them, learn from them, don't blindly copy them. And the goal is to not copy extreme examples. It is to actually find general patterns of success that are actually repeatable, because outliers are interesting, but patterns are more profitable. And trust me, your luck, your timing, everything that you have right now will come into play as well. But if you just follow these general patterns of success, you have just basically doubled your chance of success, because you're actually just following the principles, and your luck and everything, your timing is going to play out itself. Okay. So if you are a health and wellness brand doing 6 figures a month and you're struggling to actually scale to those 7-figure months without actually going unprofitable, you just can't seem to actually find out how to do it. Maybe you keep going unprofitable. Maybe the ROAS tanks. Maybe you've tried to scale the spend and the ROAS was like, no, whoop, you know. That was a little bit weird, I don't know. But anyway, you get the point, right? Basically, you can't scale to 7 figures a month and you're struggling to do it. You might want to click the first link in the description. It's not a course. It's not some webinar. It's not some free training just baiting you into booking a call with me. I'm being completely honest in that video. That video is just me explaining how we could help you. And it's designed to actually get you to book in a call with me where we're actually going to sell you something. Complete transparency, okay? But we can actually help you. So I have no shame in actually just saying that go click that link if you have that problem. If you don't have that problem, doesn't matter. Don't click the link, okay? You don't have to click the link. But anyway, if you did like the video, YouTube is incentivized to show you more videos like these. And if you find this helpful, then you'll see more videos like these. If you have any comments, opinions, suggestions, questions, anything, just tell me in the comments, right? Always appreciate it. And yeah, if you don't want to, I guess, lose my channel in a way, chances are we're never going to see each other again. So you might want to subscribe to the channel if you found this helpful. If you don't, then you might want to click the dislike button. I don't know. Up to you. Just let me know. I will talk to you soon. Subscribe.